All right, Tennessee Titans fans, we're back checking out another one today. This is from ESPN NFL Live. Sam, I don't want to be disrespectful. I don't know how to say his last name. Acho, on the Titans QB Will Levis. Apparently, his confidence is low in Will Levis.
The Tennessee Titans continue to beef up their receiving core by signing former Bengals wide receiver Tyler Boyd to a one-year contract worth $4.5 million per ESPN's Jeremy Fowler. It's another weapon for second-year quarterback Will Levis, and one who knows this offense very well after spending 5 seasons.
This has nothing to do with the video necessarily, but I can't believe it's almost here. We're close. Preseason football starts in a few weeks. Ooh, I'm getting the goosebumps, man.
Seasons in Cincinnati in Brian Callahan's system. And this continues a very busy offseason for the Tennessee Titans. You see the additions there. They added another wide receiver in Calvin Ridley, who had over 1,000 yards for AFC South rival Jacksonville last season. Not too shabby of a receiver trio behind with Ridley, Boyd, and DeAndre Hopkins. Tennessee also moving out Derrick Henry in free agency, replacing him with running back Tony Pollard. And on defense, Titans added cornerback L'Jarius Sneed in a trade with the Kansas City Chiefs. So
once again, this is something I have repeated so many times on this channel that I'm going to have to put it on a t-shirt. If they were talking about any other team right now, most any other team, they would be like, this team just punch their ticket to the playoffs. But with the Titans, it's like, oh yeah, Snead, Ridley, Pollard, Cushenberry, Awuzie, whatever. Let's talk about the Colts.
Graz, we know they've made a lot of these moves with the investment to build around Will Levis in year 2. What have you heard about how they view their young quarterback?
Yeah, I think, Courtney, they see a lot of upside with Will Levis, and they believe that last year he showed flashes of his potential, but obviously it's still too soon in his career to know for sure, can this be the long-term franchise quarterback? So I think their plan this offseason was to surround him with the best possible group so that he could show them, so he could help answer those questions. Only fair to provide him with good protection and good weapons if you're...
Remember when the Titans started making all these moves over the offseason and people were like, why are they doing this? They have Will Levis as their quarterback. Why are they making all these win now moves? Why are they getting all these guys? Because they have money? Because what else are you supposed to do? Put it into a savings account? Because you want to see what you have in Will Levis, and how can you do that with bums on the field?
Going to make a judgment on him in terms of your long term. So I think this year is something of an audition for Will Levis. It's possible they get to the end of it and think they may have to look elsewhere, but they wanted to give him the best possible chance to show how good he can be before they make that judgment.
Certainly helps when you have an upgraded group around you. And Acho, that's where I want to go next here. Knowing the additions that they've made, how much confidence do you have in Levis being able to show he's the guy with these new weapons?
Yeah, my confidence is still low in Will Levis, and some of that's based off of what I saw statistically, but also some of that is based off of what we saw just from what was around him. Last year, Will Levis, I think in the Texans game in week 14 or so, got sacked 7 different times. So what do you do in the offseason? You go and you address it. You go and get Lloyd Cushenberry. You go and get J.C. Latham in the draft. And so hopefully that will help. But no matter how many weapons are put around you, either if you're holding on to the ball too long, you can't get the ball to those weapons, doesn't matter who is at receiver, or your slot receiver, or your X, or it doesn't.
Yes, it matters. It absolutely matters. So what you're saying is, last year, Will Levis got sacked a lot. His protection was awful. Now you're saying they've addressed it. They went out and drafted J.C. Latham. They got Lloyd Cushenberry. They got some other new offensive linemen coming in. But even with that, it doesn't matter, apparently, because, well, Will Levis is holding on to the ball too long, and it doesn't matter what weapons you have out there. Has it ever dawned on you that maybe part of the reason he's holding on to the ball too long, I'll give it, he was a rookie. I'm not going to say Will Levis didn't make, I'm not here to be like, Will Levis never made any mistakes last year. Of course he did. But just that right there, so you're assuming he's not going to improve. You're assuming that this entire offseason, knowing that he's going to be the starter come week 1, you're just assuming that he's not going to get any better. He is going to not learn from the mistakes that he made last year. He is going to not learn from the season that he's already had where he played half the year. And he's going to have better weapons. You're telling me that bringing in Calvin Ridley, bringing in Tyler Boyd, bringing back DeAndre Hopkins, bringing in Tony Pollard, elevating Tyjae Spears to a heavier role, that's not going to matter? Having receivers who are probably going to be able to get open more, having an offense that is going to be more tailored to what he's good at and what he can do, instead of just, here, Derek, here's the ball, 1st and 10, here's a handoff up the middle for the 87th time in a row. 2nd and 13, let's hand it off up the middle again. We're just going to act like that's all his fault. We're going to act like having a new offense, having someone who has worked with Peyton Manning and Joe Burrow and Matt Stafford, we're going to act like that couldn't possibly help. We're going to act like having a new offensive line couldn't possibly help. We're going to act like having Calvin Ridley and Tyler Boyd and DeAndre Hopkins and Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears can't possibly help. It doesn't matter what weapons you have if you're going to hold on to the ball too long. What if you're holding on to the ball too long because the weapons you have can't get open? What if you're holding on to the ball too long because the play call is stupid, or because the route combinations are stupid? What if you're holding on to the ball too long because the coaching hasn't been great? I don't know. Again, I'm not saying that the mistakes that Will Levis made last season are not on him. He'd be the first to tell you they're on him. But to act like all of these changes around him are going to have no impact on him and are not going to help him to improve at all? You're on the air on national television on ESPN, the worldwide leader in sports, and this is your analysis?
Matter. And so for me, I think that the jury is definitely still out. But the benefit is this: at least you're building from the inside out. Whether Will Levis proves he can do it now or not, you have the pieces on the outside and on the offensive line now.
Yeah, and when you talk about those pieces, let's give Rand Carthon, the GM, a shout out, because he's kind of transformed this roster from last year to this one. They got talent everywhere on this roster, so you got to give Rand Carthon a huge shout out because he has put the onus on Will Levis. I don't want to talk about no.
I don't know about that right side of the offensive line. I don't know if you guys can see it. They've got Latham, Skoronski, Cushenberry, yes. Then they've got Brunskill at right guard and Dylan Radins at right tackle. I'm not so sure. I'm not saying that won't be it, but I'm saying it is way too early to tell. But, yeah.
Mayonnaise and the
They've also got Pollard as the starting running back. I still think it's going to be Spears. I think it'll be a 1-2 punch.
I don't want to talk about some of these eating habits you had. Here's what I want to talk about.
I want to let Booger say that again because I agree.
And the coffee, I don't want to talk on Will Levis. I don't want to talk about no mayonnaise and the coffee. I don't want to talk about some of these eating habits you had. Here's what I want to talk about, Will Levis. You got playmakers everywhere on the field. You went and got Lloyd Cushenberry, Rand Carthon did. You got J.C. Latham, who I think was the best right tackle in the draft. So there are pieces there now. The onus falls on Will Levis. Can you get it done? No longer are you a rookie. You got your feet wet last year. Can you come out this year and have a better season and more production? We know he's tough. We know he's physically gifted, but can you do what the quarterback position is required to do? Can you distribute the football from the pocket? Ultimately, that's going to be a key. I like Acho. I still need to see more because if you are going to figure out if he's your franchise quarterback, you have to do it this year. If not, the cycle starts over for the Tennessee Titans.
We're talking Fitz. We're talking Manning. I love it.
You know what? I wasn't expecting that, but I agree with Booger almost word for word. Almost word for word. Because you know what? I'm sick of hearing about the mayonnaise too. I'm sick of hearing about the mayonnaise. I'm sick of hearing about his eating habits. I'm sick of that being the thing about him. I'm sick of that being the thing that everybody knows him for. I agree. I want people to know him for throwing touchdowns. I want people to know him for winning games. That's what I want people to know him for. So I agree, and I don't have a problem with Booger or anybody else saying, hey, we need to see more. It's going to be on him. They got help around him. He's got more than enough around him to help him be successful. It's time for him to show what he can do. I agree. 100%. The problem I had with what Sam said is when he said, my faith is low. My faith is low in him, and then he said, because some of the mistakes that he made last year, he held on to the ball too long, he made some bad throws. That's where I have a problem. Because you're just assuming he's not going to get any better. We ain't talking about the same coaching staff and most of the same weapons coming back. We're talking about a completely different team and a completely different coaching staff. And that changes nothing for you.
Off to a roaring start here on NFL Live. The Titans know that they need to protect Will Levis. As you saw, he's got a new left tackle there. 7th overall pick in J.C. Latham. The Titans allowed a sack rate, which was the 2nd highest in the NFL last season.
All right, you guys to watch the one I did on Monday, that one absolutely drove me up the wall. This one was better, although I do think the one guy was kind of out of line. I agree with Booger. I think that what the Titans will be like this year largely falls on Will Levis. Year 2, you've got some experience. You've got an entire offseason, or you will have an entire offseason under your belt, knowing you're going to be the starter. There's no maybe. There's no if somebody gets hurt. No, you are it. You are the guy. And I agree. I completely agree with most of what Booger said. And unlike Sam, I do have faith that we can see more of the good things that we saw from Will Levis in year 1. Especially with all these new weapons and a new offense. Tighten up.